The kitchen light is too bright for the hour. It flattens everything, faces, countertops, the truth. My stepmom sits with her hands folded like she's waiting for applause. My dad stands at the sink, not washing anything, just letting the water run a little too long. I set a sealed envelope on the table, right between the salt shaker and her ceramic fruit bowl. I'm going to say this once, I tell her, calm enough that my own pulse sounds louder than my words. You don't get access to my money. The fridge hums in the pause that follows. A mug in my father's hand freezes halfway to his mouth. The little candle my stepmom insisted we light for warmth flickers like it's reconsidering its job. Her smile doesn't leave. It just tightens at the corners. Dad clears his throat. He doesn't look at me. He looks at the window. Like the glass might take his side. I can feel the shift, quiet, heavy, irreversible. The kind that happens before anyone speaks again. My stepmom tilts her head. Honey, what is this? It's not the question that hits me. It's what she doesn't ask. Not why I'm doing it. Not what happened. Just, what are you going to do next? And beneath it, who do you think you are to stop me? I keep my voice even. It's documented. Dad finally turns. Can we not do this right now? I don't raise my voice. I don't move first. Silence is a decision. And in this house, it's always been my father's favorite one. People always say, she saved your dad. They say it like it's a romantic plot twist. Like the story ends when someone starts packing your lunch again. My mom died when I was 18. Sudden. Medical. The kind of phone call that makes your spine lock and your hands go numb. I went from high school graduation photos to hospital forms. I learned how to sign paperwork before I learned how to grieve. My dad didn't collapse outward. He collapsed inward. He became a man who did everything except feel it. He worked more. He spoke less. He began living like emotions were bills he could postpone. I left for the military not because I wanted distance from him, but because I needed structure more than I needed sympathy. The service gave me rules. Sleep cycles. Clean corners. Mission objectives. It taught me that control doesn't always come from force. It can come from timing. From posture. From staying calm while other people lose their shape. When I came home on leave the second year, there was a woman in our kitchen wearing my mother's apron like it had always belonged to her. Her name was Denise. She looked like someone a magazine would hire to play stable. Polished hair, clean nails, voice soft enough to make you lean in. She laughed at my dad's jokes and touched his arm at the right times. She spoke in warm, rounded words, family, security, planning ahead. The first thing she ever said to me was, "You must have been so strong for your father." Strong. Not sad. Not young. Strong like a tool. She won everyone fast. My aunt adored her because Denise brought casseroles and remembered birthdays. The neighbors loved her because she organized holiday potlucks. Family friends started calling her the glue. I watched the way she navigated conversations like a skilled swimmer in a crowded pool, never splashing, never seeming desperate, always making sure she had the center lane. She never challenged my father directly. She didn't have to. She just positioned herself as the translator of his life. When Dad remarried, people clapped. They smiled like grief had been fixed by good manners. I smiled too. Because polite doesn't mean harmless, and I didn't have enough data yet to prove what my instincts already whispered. It started with questions that were shaped like compliments. Denise would watch me pour coffee in the morning and say, "You're so independent." It's admirable. Then, like an afterthought, "Do you ever worry that you're too separate? Money can make people lonely." Or when I mentioned my savings plan, she'd smile sweetly and ask, "Is it really necessary to be that guarded? We're family." When I bought a used truck, clean title, good mileage, paid in full, she blinked like I'd confessed to a crime. "Oh," she said carefully, "that's practical. But wouldn't it have been smarter to finance? Build your credit." I already had excellent credit. I didn't tell her that. I just listened. Records don't forget. And neither do patterns. Denise's concern always leaned in the same direction. My choices were too independent, my boundaries too firm, my money too mine. She never demanded. She suggested. She planted what-if seeds. And my dad, my peacekeeping father, would mumble from behind his phone, "She's just worried." It's complicated. Complicated was his favorite blanket. He threw it over anything he didn't want to see. The first time she said it in front of people, I felt the temperature in my body change, like something inside me slid into place. It was my aunt's birthday dinner. Big table. Too much food. Laughter with sharp edges. Someone asked how the military was treating me, and I said the truth. It taught me discipline and gave me stability. Denise reached for her wine and said, and it gives you good benefits, too. We're so grateful. It's nice knowing the family has security. The word has landed wrong. I didn't correct her then. I let it sit. Because I was still learning how she tested lines. My aunt nodded approvingly. It'll be good when you can help your dad more. My dad smiled faintly, like he didn't know whether to be proud or uncomfortable. Denise added, it's not your burden, sweetheart. It's our responsibility. We plan ahead in this family. She said family the way some people say property. I felt eyes on me. Witnesses make pressure. Witnesses also make accountability. I swallowed once. Calm. Controlled. I'm glad you feel secure, I said. But my benefits aren't communal. Denise's smile held. Of course. Misunderstanding. I just mean, we're worried about the future. Worried. Another soft word with a hidden hand inside it. The real escalation wasn't a fight. It was an absence. I came home for a longer stay after a training rotation. I had leave. I had time. I planned to reset. I walked into the small room off the hallway, the one that used to be my study space, and stopped. My desk was gone. Not moved. Gone. In its place, a cream-colored writing table with decorative drawers that couldn't hold a folder without bending. A vase of artificial peonies. A framed quote about gratitude. Denise appeared behind me like she'd been waiting for my reaction. Oh, she said lightly. I refreshed the room. It felt so tense before. Now it's more inviting. My throat stayed steady. Where's my desk? She blinked. Well, I assumed you wouldn't mind. You're hardly here. We need space for family things. I looked at the decorative table. At the fake flowers. At the quote that wasn't mine. Where's my desk? I asked again. Dad's voice floated from down the hallway. It's complicated, kiddo. We can talk later. Later. Always later. Silence is a decision. I checked the closet. My file box was missing too. The one with my essential documents, copies of my birth certificate, military paperwork, and the only photo album my mother's sister had given me after the funeral. I didn't panic. Panic is a luxury. I took inventory. Missing. File box. Photo album. 2 binders of service records. The lockbox I kept with old letters. Denise hovered. Why do you keep so much paperwork? It's stressful. You should let us help. My eyes stayed on the empty shelf. Help looks like returning what isn't yours. She laughed softly, like I'd made an awkward joke. Sweetheart, don't be dramatic. Polite doesn't mean harmless. That night, I lay awake and listened to the house. The small settling noises. The creak of pipes. The distant sound of my father's TV. I thought about my mother's photo album. How grief can be stolen twice, once by death, once by someone who thinks your memories are negotiable. Control doesn't always come from force. Sometimes it comes from rearranging your environment until you question your own claim to it. 2 mornings later, my phone buzzed while I was outside running. Cold air. Quiet street. Breath in steady counts. The notification was from my bank. We noticed an attempted inquiry on your account. Was this you? I stopped mid-stride. My heart didn't race. My mind narrowed. Attempted inquiry. Not a transaction. Someone trying to access. Someone trying to get information. I hit NO. A minute later, another alert. Credit monitoring. New activity. Address verification attempt. I walked home slower than I'd started. Not because I was afraid. Because I was collecting the moment, the way you collect shell casings. In the kitchen, Denise was humming while wiping a countertop that was already clean. I put my phone on the table, screen up. Did you try to access my bank information? She didn't look at the phone. She looked at me. Soft concern on her face, rehearsed like a dress. Oh my God, she breathed. No. Why would I do that? I held her gaze. Because the bank says someone did. Dad appeared, rubbing his forehead like he'd already decided he was tired. Denise turned to him immediately. This is exactly what I mean, stress. She's under so much pressure. She's seeing threats everywhere. Dad sighed. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. You're reading too much into it. I nodded once. I'm not accusing. I'm informing. Then I added, I've locked my accounts. Denise blinked faster than she meant to. A tiny crack. Locked, she repeated, like the concept was rude. New passwords. Two-factor authentication. Fraud alert, I said, each word clean and unemotional. No one has access but me. Denise's voice stayed sweet. Honey, that's so extreme. We're family. Family. Stress. Responsibility. Security. Planning ahead. Always the same him. I looked at my father. Did you give her any of my information? His mouth opened. Closed. It's complicated. Silence is a decision. And his silence answered me. The evidence didn't come from hacking or spy work. It came from Denise's confidence. People who think they're right rarely hide well. I found the folder 3 days later while looking for my missing file box. I checked the garage first. Then the hall closet. Then the storage cabinet in the laundry room, newly organized, labeled in Denise's neat handwriting. On the top shelf, behind a stack of seasonal table linens, was a plain manila folder with my name written on it. Not my last name, just my first. Like I was a child on a school form. Inside were printouts, emails, notes, a list written in her script. Income, monthly. Credit score target. Cosigner options? Authorized user ad? Beneficiary update. Verify process. Collateral. Vehicle. Savings. My fingers stayed steady. My stomach didn't. It wasn't only about money. It was about access, about rewriting me into a resource. At the bottom was a printed email chain with a subject line that made my vision sharpen. Loan pre-qualification. Joint application inquiry. I didn't sit down. I didn't cry. I took pictures of everything. Front and back. Close-ups. Timestamps. Records don't forget. And if you do it right, neither do institutions. I put the folder back exactly where it was, down to the angle of the papers. Then I went back to my room and opened a new document on my laptop. I started a timeline. Dates. Times. Who said what? What was missing? What alerts came in? Where I found the folder. Military training doesn't make you cold. It makes you precise. The last piece came the next morning when Denise left her laptop open on the dining table, screen angled away, like privacy theater. I wasn't looking for it. I was walking through with my coffee when I saw my own name on the screen. Not typed casually. Entered into a form. My income. My employer. My monthly net. My assets. A draft application. Incomplete, but real. There was a section labeled, Purpose of Loan, Home Improvements / Consolidation / Family Security. And there it was again, Family Security. The phrase she used like a key. I took one photo. Then another. Then a third that captured the whole screen with the date and time in the corner. I didn't touch the keyboard. I didn't alter anything. I didn't need to. Then I walked outside and sat in my truck with the engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel like a pause between actions. My mother's voice wasn't something I remembered in words anymore. It was a feeling. A steady presence that used to tell me, you're allowed to exist without earning your place. Denise wasn't trying to borrow money. She was trying to draft my life into her plan. When people picture standing up for yourself, they imagine a dramatic speech. What they don't imagine is a quiet morning with coffee and a checklist. I didn't confront Denise immediately. I prepared. Because control doesn't always come from force. Sometimes it comes from being the only one in the room who already knows the ending. I called my bank's fraud department and asked for a complete list of inquiry attempts on my accounts, dates, channels, and notes. Then I froze my credit with all 3 bureaus. Not temporarily. Fully. I updated every password to random strings stored in a secure manager. 2-factor on everything. I set alerts for any new inquiries, any beneficiary changes, any authorized user requests. Records don't forget. But they need to exist first. I didn't ask Denise for my missing documents. Asking would give her time to rewrite the story. Instead, I asked my aunt if she'd seen my mom's photo album because I wanted to digitize it. My aunt hesitated. Denise mentioned you were keeping too many emotional things. She said she was helping you let go. Let go. Like grief was clutter. I thanked my aunt calmly and asked if I could stop by. I picked up the album that afternoon. It had been stored safely at my aunt's house by Denise. I didn't argue about it. I just added it to my timeline. Silence is a decision. This time mine. I scheduled a meeting with an attorney, not for revenge, not for drama. for boundaries. The office was neutral and clean. Quiet carpet. Soft lighting. A receptionist who didn't know my family history and didn't need to. The attorney listened, eyes steady, and said, "You're doing the right thing documenting. What you're describing is an attempted financial exploitation pathway. It often starts with help language." I nodded. She hasn't succeeded. Attempt matters, the attorney said. Intent matters. Especially if there's evidence. I opened my folder, the real one now, not Denise's, and laid out the printouts, photos, and timeline. The attorney didn't gasp. She didn't dramatize. She just started organizing. "That," she said, tapping the draft application photo, "is your anchor." We talked about formal no-contact boundaries regarding finances, written notice to the bank, and a mediated meeting if necessary, because family sometimes behaves best when witnesses exist. Witnesses create social pressure. Institutions create consequences. Mother's Day was coming. Denise loved holidays. She treated them like stages, fresh flowers, curated menus, roles assigned without asking. She'd already planned a family dinner. Of course she had. An audience. I decided not to cancel it. I decided to use it. Not because I wanted to humiliate her. Because I wanted to end the game where it began, in front of people who had helped her believe she was untouchable. Polite doesn't mean harmless. And public charm doesn't outrank paper. Mother's Day dinner looked like a magazine spread. Denise's table runner was ironed. Candles were lit. Plates matched. The air smelled like rosemary and something sweet baking, comfort engineered. My aunt came. 2 cousins. A family friend who always talked too loudly. My dad's old coworker. Enough people to make the room feel full of expectation. Denise floated between chairs, touching shoulders, refilling glasses, saying the same phrases. Family is everything. We have to plan ahead. Security matters. I showed up with a gift bag. Denise's eyes lit up, real hunger under the polish. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, loud enough for everyone. "You didn't have to." I set the gift bag on the sideboard. Then I placed my sealed envelope, thick, flat, official-looking, at her place setting. The room didn't know yet. But my body did. Calm. Grounded. Breath-controlled. Dinner began with small talk. Then Denise did what she always did. She steered the conversation toward me like a ship toward a dock. "So," she said, smiling, "we should talk about your future. Your responsibilities. You're doing so well. It's time we all start thinking as a unit." My aunt nodded. "It makes sense." Denise leaned in. "We're worried about you carrying all that money alone. It's stressful. You don't want to make mistakes. We can help you plan ahead." Dad cleared his throat. "Maybe later." Later. Again. Denise turned her smile to the table. "I mean, what's the point of family if we don't protect each other? Your income could really stabilize things. It's not about you alone." There it was. Loud enough for witnesses. Soft enough to deny. I set my fork down. The cutlery pause sounded louder than it should have. Candlelight trembled. The fridge hum wasn't here, but the silence had the same texture. I looked at Denise. Opened the envelope. Her smile faltered. "Now." "Yes," I said. Calm. "Now." The table stilled. Even the loud family friend stopped mid-chew. Denise glanced at my father, seeking backup. He stared at his plate like it was a puzzle. She slid a finger under the seal and opened it. Inside was a clean, organized packet, screenshots, the timeline, bank alerts, copies of her email printouts, everything arranged like evidence, not emotion. Denise's eyes moved quickly. Her throat bobbed once. I didn't raise my voice. "I'm not accusing," I said to the whole table, not just her. "I'm informing." My aunt frowned. "What is this?" Denise tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "This is a misunderstanding. She's been under stress." I turned one page, slow, deliberate. "Here is the bank inquiry attempt." I turned another. "Here is the list of beneficiary questions in your handwriting." Another. "Here is a draft loan application with my income entered, dated and time-stamped." Denise's face flushed, then rearranged itself into concern. I was planning ahead. For security. For the family. "You don't understand how heavy it is to manage a household." I nodded once. "I understand exactly. That's why the boundary stands." Dad finally looked up. His voice was small. "Denise, tell me you didn't." She snapped her gaze to him, still smiling. "Don't do this here." This is private. I spoke softly, but the words landed like a gavel. You made it public when you implied my resources belong to you. The room stayed frozen. Witnesses held their breath. My aunt set her napkin down slowly. Denise, did you take her documents? Denise's voice turned syrupy. I was keeping them safe. She's so impulsive. We were worried. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I've already filed fraud alerts, I said. My credit is frozen. My bank has instructions. And I have a scheduled meeting with a professional office to formalize boundaries. Denise's eyes sharpened. You went behind our backs? I met her stare. I went in front of the law. Silence is a decision. This time, everyone chose it. No one defended her loudly. No one rescued her with jokes. My father sat there looking like a man watching a bridge collapse slowly, realizing he'd been standing on it. Denise pushed her chair back with controlled grace. I think you're overreacting. I nodded again, calm as stone. Then the paperwork won't affect you. She stood. This isn't how family behaves. I looked at her and said, family isn't defined by access. The words didn't sound triumphant. They sounded final. Dinner continued after that, but it wasn't dinner anymore. It was aftermath with plates. Denise didn't eat. My father didn't speak much. My aunt watched Denise like she was finally seeing the mechanism under the polish. Polite doesn't mean harmless. And records don't forget. 3 days later, we sat in an attorney's conference room. Neutral walls. Water pitcher. No candles. No food. No family theater. Denise arrived dressed like a church service. Calm face. Soft voice. Victim posture. My father came with slumped shoulders and tired eyes, like he'd been carrying later for too many years. The mediator, an older woman with a steady tone, opened a folder and said, "We're here to establish clear financial boundaries and address documented concerns." Denise smiled. "We're just trying to plan ahead. There's been a misunderstanding." The mediator didn't react. "We'll proceed with facts." I slid my timeline across the table. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just dates. I spoke like I was giving a briefing. Week 1. Concerned comments about my spending and savings. Week 2. Public statements implying my benefits belong to the family. Week 3. Personal property and documents removed without consent. Week 4. Bank and credit inquiry attempts triggered alerts. Week 5. Physical evidence found, handwritten notes and printed emails. Week 6. Photograph of draft application with my income entered. Denise's smile cracked at the edges. This is an attack. She's punishing me. I looked at the mediator, not at Denise. I'm not punishing. I'm preventing. The mediator nodded slowly. Miss Denise, did you attempt to access her financial accounts or submit an application using her income? Denise exhaled, controlled. I was helping. She doesn't understand responsibility. We're worried about security. Her father needs stability. My father flinched at the word needs. I turned to him calmly. Dad, you can have stability without my accounts. He swallowed. I didn't think it would go that far. Silence is a decision. And his silence had helped it go far. The attorney placed a document on the table. This is a formal notice, she said. No access to her financial information. No use of her income in any application. No removal of her documents or property. No requests to banks or agencies in her name. Any violation triggers immediate escalation. Denise's voice rose slightly, not a shout, but a tremor. This is ridiculous. Family share. I kept my voice level. Care never has to be extracted. The mediator looked at Denise. You can sign, or we can proceed through other channels. Your choice. Denise stared at the paper like it was an insult. Then she picked up the pen. Her hand shook, barely. She signed. My father signed too. His signature looked like surrender. The mediator stamped the agreement and slid copies across the table. It was over in ink, not emotion. Records don't forget. And now neither could she pretend it hadn't happened. The day after the meeting, I drove alone before sunrise. No music. No calls. Just tires on asphalt and the soft line of light lifting the horizon. I pulled into the cemetery where my mom is buried, not because I believed she could hear me, but because I needed a place where the truth didn't get negotiated. The air was cold and clean. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask you to perform. I stood in front of her headstone and let my hands rest in my jacket pockets. I handled it, I said softly, not as a victory report. As closure. I thought about how Denise used the word family like a crowbar. How my father used the word later like a shield. How everyone had called me strong like it meant I didn't need protecting. Strength isn't never being harmed. Strength is deciding what you will not normalize. Polite doesn't mean harmless. Silence is a decision. Records don't forget. Control doesn't always come from force. I inhaled slowly and let the breath out like a final signature. Family isn't defined by access. And love, real love, doesn't require your bank account to prove it. If you're still here, tell me one thing in the comments. Where are you watching from, and what's one boundary you've had to draw with someone who used family as leverage? If you want more long-form stories like this, calm, high-stakes, and methodical, subscribe and stick around. New narratives are on the way.